Women do not feel sexual desire the way you think we do. And the fact that most men have never been told the truth about this is the reason so many relationships lose their spark. So many women go cold in the bedroom, and so many men are left completely confused about what they did wrong. What you were taught about female desire through movies, through conversations with other men, through everything culture fed you growing up is almost entirely wrong, and it is costing you more than you realize. Here is what most men do not understand. Female desire is not a switch that gets flipped by the right physical move or the right romantic gesture. It is not something we feel simply because a man is attractive or successful or attentive. It is something that gets built, slowly, consistently, through very specific things that have nothing to do with what happens in a bedroom, and everything to do with what happens outside of it. The way you speak to us, the way you carry yourself, the way you make us feel in our everyday interactions with you. That is where female desire actually lives, and most men are completely missing it. I am a woman, and I am going to tell you exactly what actually creates desire in us. Honestly, directly, and without the sugarcoating that usually waters this conversation down into something useless. Because you deserve to understand this clearly. Not so you can manipulate anyone, but so you can show up in a way that actually works. For her and for you. Stay with me, because this is the conversation that changes everything. She was never going to feel it for a man who made her feel invisible. The single biggest killer of female desire is not physical incompatibility or lack of attraction. It is feeling unseen by the man who is supposed to know you best. When a woman feels invisible in a relationship, when her thoughts go unacknowledged, her efforts go unnoticed, and her presence feels like something a man has simply gotten used to, rather than something he genuinely values, desire does not just decrease, it disappears completely. And no physical technique or romantic gesture applied after the fact can revive something that died from that kind of neglect. Feeling seen is not the same as being complimented. A man can tell a woman she looks beautiful every single day and still make her feel completely invisible. Being seen means a man notices the small things, the way she seems quieter than usual, the effort she put into something she did not ask for recognition for, the thing she mentioned weeks ago that he remembered without being reminded. It means she can say something real and feel it land with him, rather than bounce off the surface of a man who was present in body but absent in attention. That quality of attention is what makes a woman feel like she matters, and feeling like she matters is the foundation that desire is built on. A woman had been with a man for 2 years who was by every external measure a good partner. He was reliable, he was kind, he provided well. But she realized one evening that she had been sharing pieces of herself with him for months, and nothing was landing. She would talk about something that genuinely excited her, and he would nod and move the conversation forward without really absorbing what she said. She would have a hard day, and he would ask if she was okay, and accept the word fine without looking any closer. She started to feel like a roommate in her own relationship, and the moment that feeling settled in, something in her body followed. The desire she had felt easily in the beginning became something she had to search for, and eventually, she stopped searching. What you need to understand is that a woman's desire is directly connected to how emotionally present you are with her on an ordinary day. Not on special occasions, not when you are trying to create a mood, but in the regular, unremarkable moments that make up most of a relationship. When she feels genuinely seen in those moments, when she knows that you are paying real attention to who she is, and not just the idea of her, something stays alive in her that cannot be manufactured any other way. Make her feel visible every day, and you will never have to wonder where her desire went. Desire starts in her mind long before it ever reaches her body. If there is one thing I wish every man genuinely understood about female desire, it is this. By the time a woman feels desire physically, the groundwork for it was laid hours or sometimes days before. Women do not compartmentalize the way men often do. We do not have the ability to set aside how a conversation went that morning, or how dismissed we felt during an argument last night, or how unsupported we have been feeling all week, and then simply feel desire because the moment seems right. Our minds and our bodies are connected in a way that makes emotional experience inseparable from physical response. What happens in your relationship outside the bedroom determines almost everything that happens inside it. This means that desire for a woman is largely built during ordinary moments that most men do not even register as significant. It is built when you listen to her without offering an immediate solution. It is built when you take something off her plate without being asked. It is built when you engage with her ideas like they matter, when you make her laugh without trying too hard, when you handle something difficult with calm and quiet competence. Each of those moments adds something to an internal account that a woman draws from when it comes to feeling open, warm, and physically drawn to you. And every moment of emotional disconnection, dismissiveness, or absence makes a withdrawal from that same account. Most men approach desire as something that needs to be created in the moment, the right setting, the right words, the right physical moves. And then they are genuinely confused when none of it works, not understanding that the moment they are trying to create was already decided hours earlier by how emotionally connected she felt to them throughout the day. A woman who felt genuinely cared for, heard, and valued during the day does not need much convincing later. A woman who spent the day feeling like an afterthought in her own relationship cannot simply switch that off because the lights are dim and the mood seems right. What this means practically is that the most powerful thing you can do for your intimate life is invest in your emotional connection during the hours that seem completely unrelated to desire. Text her something that shows you are thinking about her. Be fully present during a conversation instead of half listening. Handle a situation with the kind of steady competence that reminds her why she chose you. These are not small things dressed up as big things. These are the actual building blocks of female desire, and the men who understand that are the ones whose partners never go cold on them. The reason she went cold, and it had nothing to do with you physically. When a woman goes cold, the first place most men look for answers is the physical side of the relationship. They wonder if they are doing something wrong, if something needs to change technically, if the attraction has simply worn off over time. And while they are looking in that direction, they are completely missing where the real answer is sitting. A woman going cold physically is almost never about the physical. It is the final visible sign of an emotional disconnection that has been building quietly for much longer than the man realized. By the time she goes cold, she has usually been trying to signal the problem in other ways for weeks and feeling like nobody was receiving the message. Women do not go cold suddenly. There is always a process that leads there, and that process almost always begins with feeling emotionally alone inside a relationship. It begins with conversations that feel one-sided. It begins with needs that get expressed and then quietly ignored. It begins with the slow, painful realization that the man she is with is comfortable, but no longer genuinely curious about her. Comfort in a relationship is necessary, but comfort without curiosity kills desire faster than almost anything else. When a woman feels like her partner has stopped wanting to discover new things about her, she stops feeling like someone worth desiring, and that feeling is fatal to everything physical between them. Here is something women rarely say directly, but feel deeply. Going cold is not a punishment we plan. It is not a strategy designed to teach you a lesson or get a reaction. It is an involuntary response to an emotional environment that no longer feels safe or alive enough to be open in. When a woman cannot trust that her emotional needs will be received with care, her body protects her by shutting the door. It is not a decision she makes consciously. It is something that happens because the conditions that made her feel open and willing simply no longer exist. Understanding that removes the blame from the physical entirely and places the real conversation where it actually belongs. Warming a woman up who has gone cold is not about changing what you do in the bedroom. It is about rebuilding the emotional environment that made her feel safe enough to be vulnerable in the first place. It requires patience, genuine attention, and the humility to understand that something she needed was missing long before the coldness became visible. The men who figure this out stop treating the symptom and start addressing the actual cause. And when the emotional environment genuinely shifts, the physical almost always follows, without either person having to force it. She does not want to be wanted. She wants to feel chosen every single day. There is a difference between a man who wants a woman and a man who chooses her. And women feel that difference in their bones, even when they cannot always put it into words. Being wanted is passive. It is easy. Any man can want a woman the way he wants something that looks good and feels good to have around. Being chosen is active. It is deliberate. It is a man who, knowing everything about you, your moods, your edges, your imperfections, your difficult days, still turns toward you with intention and makes it clear that you are not a default. You are a decision he keeps making. That feeling of being actively chosen is one of the most powerful drivers of female desire that exists, and most men stop doing it the moment they feel secure in a relationship. The moment a relationship feels settled, most men unconsciously shift from choosing to assuming. They stop doing the things that communicated intentionality in the beginning. The thoughtful gestures, the genuine curiosity, the effort to create moments that make a woman feel like she is someone worth creating moments for. They replace all of that with comfort and routine, and they expect desire to remain at the same level it was when they were still showing up with full intention. That is not how it works for women. Desire for us is directly tied to how valued and deliberately chosen we feel on a consistent basis. When that feeling fades, desire fades with it almost immediately. Being chosen every day does not require grand gestures or constant romance. It requires small, consistent acts of intentionality that tell a woman her man has not stopped seeing her as someone worth pursuing. It is the difference between sitting next to her on the couch and actually being present with her versus sitting next to her while your attention is somewhere else entirely. It is the difference between asking how her day was out of habit and asking because you genuinely want to know the answer. It is the difference between physical closeness that is routine and physical closeness that is deliberate and communicates that she is still the person you are reaching for. Small things, done consistently, with real intention behind them. What women need you to understand is that desire is not something we can sustain in a vacuum. It needs to be fed by the feeling that we are still being chosen, still being seen as someone worth the effort, still mattering to you beyond the role we play in your daily life. A woman who feels deliberately chosen by her man does not go looking for that feeling somewhere else. She does not pull back or go cold or create distance. She stays open, she stays warm, and she stays genuinely drawn to the man who never stopped making her feel like the most intentional decision he makes every single day. The moment you took your foot off the gas is the moment she started losing the feeling. Most men put in their best effort during pursuit. They are present, intentional, creative, and genuinely engaged. Then the relationship becomes official, and something shifts. Not dramatically, not overnight, but gradually. The calls get shorter, the effort gets quieter. The energy that was so consistent during the early stages starts showing up only occasionally. And the woman on the other side feels every bit of that shift, even when she does not immediately say anything about it. That slow withdrawal of effort is one of the most common reasons female desire fades inside otherwise functional relationships. A woman noticed the change in small ways at first. He stopped suggesting plans and started waiting for her to bring something up. Conversations that used to feel genuinely engaging started feeling like check-ins. The physical affection that used to feel deliberate started feeling automatic, like something that happened out of habit rather than real desire. She did not bring it up immediately because she told herself she was being too sensitive. But the feeling of being with a man who was still genuinely trying was gone, and her body registered that loss long before her mind fully processed it. Women do not need you to perform effort indefinitely in an exhausting way. What we need is to feel that your investment in us did not quietly expire the moment you felt secure. Consistency of genuine care, not perfection, is what keeps desire alive. A man who continues to show up with real presence and real intention months and years into a relationship is a man whose partner rarely goes cold because she never gets the chance to feel like she stopped being worth the effort. The fix is simpler than most men expect. You do not need to recreate the early days or manufacture romance that feels forced. You just need to bring back the intention that made the early days feel the way they did. Look at her like you chose her today. Create one moment this week that was not routine. Be present in a conversation instead of just available for one. Small reactivations of genuine effort send a signal that travels directly to the place where her desire lives and reminds it that it has good reason to stay.